This is the third time that we present the Parsley Massacre. It is a big event, and we try to maintain it alive because, as many people said, if you don't know your history, you're condemned to repeat it. Y ustedes saben bien claro que en estos momentos necesitamos que nos recuerden que hay una sola isla. Esa división que hay entre esos dos países, si miran de allá arriba no se ve. ¿Okay? Y nuestra intención con esto es que nosotros fortalecemos diferentes culturas por medio de la música. Y esta es nuestra manera de conmemorar una circunstancia que fue sumamente desafortunada en 1937. And for all of those that can share this with us in Spanish, in 1937, something that it was very unfortunate happened in the Dominican Republic with the border with Haiti. And this is the third time that we present this piece. It was written by Mr. Juan Colón, and I'm glad to introduce the Multicultural Music Orchestra.
1937, the Dominican Republic border with Haiti. Can we have a synopsis of what happened?
Thank you for having me, Luis, and thank you all. I'm incredibly honored to be here in the cradle of the Dominican diaspora. I'm from the Lower East Side. My parents are Dominican, and so I got interested in Dominican history ever since I was a young kid in Lower East Side because I was enamored by the culture, but also by this event that occurred in late September, early October 1937, where under the orders of the President Rafael Trujillo, ordered a genocidal killing of about estimated 15,000 Haitian men, women, and children, and Dominicans of Haitian descent.
Y eso es algo que yo quisiera que entendieran muy bien. Estamos hablando sobre 15,000 vidas se perdieron en un corto lapso de tiempo. So over 15,000 people died during that time. And just imagine 15,000 bodies right now. And look, it's a lot of people. And now I have a question for you guys. How many of you learned this in school? Please, I really would love to see the hands, because I would love to challenge Morro to be one of those first schools that have a majority of Dominican students to learn their history, because this is part of who we are and that's why we are here today. Y nosotros sabemos que tenemos la historia, pero la historia a veces tiene cosas muy lindas, pero tiene otras cosas que no son muy bonitas. Pero cuando no las sabemos, las repetimos. Y algo de eso vamos a hablar un poquito más adelante, porque la realidad es que estamos casi a volverlas a repetir. Y es necesario que sepamos esto. The reason for this, Edward, why this happened?
Yeah, we will never know. There's no smoking gun. I looked at the Dominican archives, but we do know it's premeditated because I wrote a book last year, and I used sources from the Vatican secret archives, from the Papal Nuncio, which is like the diplomatic representative for the Vatican, where he's writing a year before, and he's saying that there are some strange operations of military operations occurring in the Dominican border. And even in 1936, Maurinho Silvani, the Papal Nuncio, writes on the diplomatic pouch to the Vatican saying that Trujillo in 1936 wanted the Papal Nuncio office to be moved from Port-au-Prince to Santo Domingo, which he refused. Many people say Trujillo wanted to whiten the nation. Some other people say there's arguments that he wanted to capture the land to then grow food during the Great Depression and for the war effort, which, as you know, the Dominican Republic backed FDR and the US government after Pearl Harbor. We will never know, but what we do know is that the massacre is really the culmination of a historic tension between elites in Santo Domingo trying to control the frontier or the border, right?
So basically we have economic reasons, basically, in many of this stuff, in addition to the racial tensions that was happening. Well, as we know, racism is something that is rooted in one particular word, and we know what is that, right? It's called ignorance. When we don't know, we have tendency to hate.
We try to teach the students about how to make interpretation of music, how to get that empathy, something that is crucial in education nowadays. Because one of the main things that we have to understand is that if we don't create that empathy, not empathy, with sympathy, you are just, yeah, I feel sorry for you. But when I feel empathy, I know how you feel. I understand that. Through the arts, it's one of the things. Unfortunately, the arts are getting out of the curriculum, they're getting out of the schools, they're getting out, almost out of the country. And this is one of the best tools that we have to do that. But talking about the current situation that we have in the Dominican Republic, which is how we want to reflect this last movement. Could we talk a little bit about how it is right now?
How it is? As you know, 2013, the tribunal, Constitutional Tribunal in the DR, 13-member judges, Judge Tribunal, had a ruling called the 168-13, where effectively said that if you were an immigrant or you were born in the Dominican Republic, but your parents could not prove Dominican citizenship, you were not a Dominican citizen. And so there was no ethnic group that was specified, but the majority of the perhaps 1 million largest immigrant ethnic group ratio in the Dominican Republic is Haitians. And so they disproportionately got the brunt of it. So this caused an international crisis, that so much that the president, the current president now re-elected, Danilo Medina, went to Congress and said, here's a law, which was 169-14, which was called La Ley de Regularización. And ironically, it was the first time that the government, Dominican government, had ever kind of confronted this issue of immigration, right? Because previous governments had kicked the can. And as you know, the Dominican Republic, in this case, was first, right? Like, all the things you see in the DR for the past couple of years, now in the US, you see that intensify, right, in terms of immigration reform. So, but the 169-14 law was limiting, and it's still ineffective in the sense that it created two groups of people who were born and raised in the DR who had documents, but documents were stripped, taken away. Those who were born and raised, second, third generation in the Dominican Republic, but for whatever reason didn't have the documents. And so we're still at that situation at a turtle's pace. And so the question here, so eloquently manifested by Juan Colón, this amazing orchestra, is really the question of, you know, what does it mean to be Dominican in the 21st century?
And just one question, because I believe that we talked about this last time and it was so incredible. It was a penalty for the crime. According to at that time, it was the League of Nations. And could you let us know what was the penalty?
The League of Nations was a precursor of the United Nations, and in the end, Dominican government and Haitian government agreed to pay a $750,000 indemnity. In the end, it was lowered to about $500,000. What most people don't know, and I think this is my kind of contribution in my book, is that the reason you get that number is because of the papal nuncio, Maurilio Silvani, who goes to Vincent and says, I promise you, I'll get Trujillo to reconsider. And I have all these documents in Italian, which I had translated, of Mauricio Silvani in La Casa de Caoba, in Trujillo's lair, with all these exotic animals. And he's describing, and perhaps it's the only time Trujillo gets reprimanded for what it is, a crime against humanity. In the end, there was no reparations. The $700,000 or $500,000 indemnity came out to 2 cents per head. And really, what happened in the border to the massacre was what my colleague Richard Turritz, the historian, wrote an article called "A World Destroyed, a Nation Imposed." Because before the massacre, the border was very much bilingual and bicultural. The people living in the border region were like Dominican Yorks. They were bilingual, they knew both languages. And so the other thing I argue in my book, you mentioned perejil, which is parsley in English, and in Latin is Petroselinum crispum, is that perejil wasn't really necessary. Most of the interviews I conducted with the survivors of the massacre in Haiti, 60, 70 years afterwards, were conducted, guess in what language? Spanish. Many were born and raised in Dominican Republic. So perejil wasn't really necessary. Trujillo didn't care where you were born. For him, you were just Haitian, so he lumped them all together, right? And so the reason this is so important to me, because it's like, oh my God, in a futuristic kind of massacre, I'm a Dominican of Haitian descent, right? It's like, I wrote a play about this. It's like there's a massacre, let's say, of Dominicans in Boston, and instead of perejil, they asked random Dominicans on the street to pronounce Pak the Ka in Harvard Yard, right? But they just don't ask people like my parents who came here 50, 60, 70 years ago to this country. They ask people like me and my kids who were born and raised in the US. We, who are Dominicano, we, who are American, like the Dreamers. So this is an incredibly moving piece, and it puts this piece right up there, anything that the Chileans and the Germans and the Rwandans have put up in terms of a cultural production, and it's a very mature, it's a very strong expression of a mature space and understanding that you're not small because you look at the past and try to address it. You actually are big, and it's a world-class piece, historically speaking.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie.
Wow. Mr. Oliverio conducting. Wesley Reynoso on that solo the piano, because that was something else. Pete Nader, I didn't see who was the trumpet player that was doing. Pete Nader on the solo. Okay, and obviously, Maestro Juan Colón. The Multicultural Music Orchestra. Please don't go. I have two of the people that actually provided support to my hall that we just want to say hello. I would love to have the curtain down so I could have, this is the third time that they play this, so they really would love to go home. And I know that you also want to go home. But no, we are done for the night. We are done for the night. But I want to just welcome one particular person that I know that just came in. And I have a very special attachment, and I'm very grateful to this man, because this orchestra that you see here, the program that we have at the schools, we owe this to two people that started a project in Washington Heights that was called Credit Where Credit is Due. Mr. Mike Levine, who's now one of the councilmen here in New York City, and his partner, Luis de los Santos, the brother of our principal. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Te dejo el micrófono.
Wow, qué emoción ahora poder compartir con ustedes esta noche tan linda. Gracias antes que nada por haber reconocido a mí de esta manera. A este muchacho lo conozco por 25 años y he visto el éxito del proyecto a través de los años, y a la familia de los Santos, que es como ser una familia para mí. Judy de los Santos, una líder, me inspira y me ha enseñado mucho ella a través de los años con su liderazgo, así que somos dichosos acá en Mad Hall, ¿verdad? Que Judy de los Santos es nuestra principal. Qué dichosos, Aprendió de doña Luisa y don Miguel, los papás que están aquí con ella. Just briefly in English, I want to say that tonight is a reminder of the power of arts to uplift us, to educate us, to bring us together, to connect us to our history. And this is a message which Luis has really been prophetic in delivering to the city and really far beyond the city. And not just talking, but acting. And what you've brought here tonight and what you've been bringing to the schools of Washington Heights for 2 decades, you've just touched so many lives. And I want to thank you for being here, for pouring your heart and soul into this, for teaching us, for sharing with us tonight, to bringing us this unbelievable piece of art and these great musicians. So you're sending me out of here uplifted and full of joy and inspired. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for being here. Muchísimas gracias.